Hey guys, welcome back to Ripe Stories. In this malicious compliance video, I left my land vacant for 3 years. When I came back, there was a brand new house on it and it was not mine. The owner, he looked me in the eye, told me to get off his property and dared me to handle it legally, so I accepted his challenge. Let's dive right into the video. And the title story is called r/maliciouscompliance, neighbor built his dream home on my vacant land and threatens to sue me after I return 3 years later. So I bought a piece of land a while ago as a someday thing, not a giant plot, but enough that you could build a normal house, have a bit of privacy and maybe a shed, some trees and all of that. The area was quiet, older homes spaced out, a few newer builds popping up and a lot of empty lots that people bought and then never did anything with. Mine was one of those lots. I did not build right away because life got messy in the usual boring ways like work moved, family stuff, money priorities shifting, next year turning into not this year either, but it was not abandoned. I paid taxes, I kept the paperwork, I kept insurance on it and I had it marked in a normal way. Nothing dramatic, just enough that if someone wandered in, they would have to work pretty hard to convince themselves that it was free for the taking. I also was not physically there much. I would swing by when I was in town, do a quick look, make sure nobody dumped anything, and then leave. It was the kind of thing you assume will stay quiet because nobody has any reason to mess with it. That was my mistake, assuming that nobody has any reason. After being away for a long stretch, I came back into town for a visit and decided to drive out to the lot. I hadn't been back there in almost 3 years and I figured it would look a little overgrown, maybe some branches down, maybe a neighbor had tossed leaves over the edge, you know, normal vacant land stuff, but instead I turned onto the road, slowed down and saw a house. A whole house, finished, big windows, fresh siding, landscaped rocks, a driveway cut in, the works. It took me a second to even process it because my brain did that thing where it tries to protect you by suggesting you're just confused, like maybe I turned one street too early, maybe the lot numbers got mixed up, maybe I'm tired and hallucinating a farmhouse. So I pulled over, dug my folder out of the glove box like a nervous accountant and double-checked the parcel info. Same spot, same boundaries, same this is yours paperwork I've had since day one, the right lot but the wrong house. And then, like the universe wanted to add a little garnish on top, I noticed a brand new fence line that pushed the boundary inwards seemingly, not by a foot or two, by enough that you would notice if you knew what you were looking at. The fence had a shiny new no trespassing sign facing the road on my side. I sat there in my car with my hands on the wheel, just staring, trying to decide if I should laugh or throw up. A porch door opened. Someone stepped out holding a coffee mug like this was a peaceful morning routine. He saw my car, narrowed his eyes and started walking towards the fence with the confidence of someone approaching a stray dog. I got out of my car and stayed by the road. I was not about to walk up to his porch like an idiot. I called out, "Hey!" He didn't say hello, he didn't ask who I was, he gave me the kind of look you give someone who parked in your spot on purpose. "Can I help you?" he said, not friendly. More like, "Why are you here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why there's a house on my land." He laughed at me, like I just told him a joke he was excited to repeat later. "This is not your land," he said. "It's been vacant forever." I kept my voice level because I still thought for about 10 seconds that this could just be a stupid misunderstanding. I said, "I own this parcel and I pay taxes on it. If you think you own it, I'm happy to look at whatever documents you have because something is seriously wrong." He took a sip of coffee and said, "We built it legally, so if you got a problem, you can take it up with the courts." And then he added like he was doing me a favor, "And just so you know, if you keep coming around here, I will sue you for harassment." There it was, the magic word. He said it like the word sue automatically makes reality bend around him. I looked at the fence, the sign, the house, and then at him and said, "You built a house on land you don't even own. How is that legal?" He shrugged and I swear to you, he actually said, "You were not using it." Like he had caught me leaving food unattended. He followed that up with, "It was just sitting there wasted. People like you buy land and then do nothing. It's basically asking for someone to do something with it." I said, "Land does not become free because the owner is not camping on it." He rolled his eyes and went, "Look, if you want to fight it, do it legally. You're not gonna beat me. I'm not moving. "This is my home." And then he pointed at my car and said, "Also move your vehicle. You're not supposed to be parked here." That part was almost funny because we were still on the public roadside, but his whole vibe was, "I control this entire universe now." And by the way guys, is it just me or does this dude have serious main character syndrome? I really hope OP teaches that guy a lesson, but by the way, if you enjoy r/malicious compliance stories, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much. Anyway, I did not argue any further, not because I was backing down or anything, but because I'd already learned what I needed to learn. This guy was not gonna be reasoned with in a driveway conversation. Anything I said would either get twisted later or turn into a shouting match where he claims that I threatened him. So I did what the most annoying kind of person does. I went quiet and started documenting because I decided I wanted to comply with his idea of so-called doing it legally, despite him thinking he's apparently untouchable. I took photos from the road, the fence line, the no trespassing sign, the house footprint from whatever angle I could get without stepping past any obvious marker, the driveway cut, just everything. Then I got back in my car and left. That night I pulled every document I had, my deed, tax records, closing paperwork, insurance stuff. The next morning I called the local real estate attorney and said, "This is gonna sound ridiculous, but someone built a house on my land." There was a pause and then he said very calmly, "Okay, first rule, don't talk to him again. We do everything in writing from here." That was music to my ears. The attorney immediately set up two things: a proper survey by a licensed surveyor and a records pull from the local permitting office, not because we expected the permits to magically solve it, but because if the neighbor was gonna claim legal, I wanted to know what he meant by that. The survey happened first, a real surveyor came out, did actual measurements, found existing markers and walked it properly. When he showed me the results, the house was not a little over the line. The whole house footprint was on my parcel, so yeah, he literally built a house on my property. Comfortably, like it was planned that way. The fence line was wrong too, obviously. The fence was not an accident, it matched the lie. It created the illusion that the house belonged where it said. If you were a random person driving by, you would think the fence marked the property and the house fit neatly inside it. It was deliberate, and while that was happening, my attorney pulled the permit records. This is where I had a moment of, how did anyone let this happen? The neighbor actually had some kind of permits, the paperwork existed, inspections were signed off. It was not a case of someone hiding a build in the woods or something, so how does a whole house get permitted on the wrong lot? Well, here's the unglamorous answer in regards to how it works where I'm from. Inspectors don't usually resurvey property lines on every visit. They check footings, framing, electrical, plumbing, setbacks from what is shown, things like that. If the builder stakes the site wrong and the paperwork points to the wrong parcel, a city can miss it, especially if the lots look similar and there's already a fence line suggesting where the boundary is. The system assumes you're not lying about where your own land is, because most people don't attempt something this stupid. In the permit file, the neighbor's drawings were, let's just say, creative. The boundary reference were shifted in a way that made the footprint look like it sat on his lot. The driveway was shown in a way that made sense if you already believed the fence line was real. And then there was a survey attached that looked official enough at first glance: stamp, signature, some line work. Our surveyor looked at that survey and started pointing out things I wouldn't even know how to check: license number formatting that didn't match the real ones, missing elements that a real survey would include, weird inconsistencies, the kind of stuff that screams, "I downloaded a template and hoped nobody would look closely." My attorney followed up through proper channels and confirmed it was not a legitimate document from any licensed surveyor involved. So now it was not, "Oops, we built on the wrong lot." It was, "We built on the wrong lot and tried to paper over it." My attorney drafted a formal notice to the neighbor. Very simple, very boring, very deadly. "You are trespassing. The structure is on my land per licensed survey. Stop further work and we need to resolve immediately." Well, he responded through his own attorney with what I call the emotional sandwich. A bunch of words about family and investment with a thin slice of legal argument in the middle. They claimed that he built in good faith and relied on representations. They said that I'd been absent and should be reasonable. Then they proposed what they clearly thought was the only outcome I would accept. I should sell him the land under the house at a fair price, meaning a price that was conveniently low enough that he wouldn't lose money. Or, and I'm not kidding, I should pay him for the improvements he made to my land because now it is apparently more valuable. That second one made my wife laugh so hard she had to sit down. Imagine breaking into someone's yard, building a pool, and then handing them an invoice for upgrades. My attorney responded politely but firmly and said no. Also, the good faith angle is hard to sell when your file includes a bogus survey where he offered a short window for him to voluntarily move off the property and discuss a practical plan. And by the way guys, just to quickly interject here, if you would have been in OP's situation, would you have been as kind as OP? It seems OP is taking this whole situation in a really chill way. I would have instantly called the cops and tried to get this guy thrown off my property. But maybe that's just me. Let me know what you would have done. Anyway, the neighbor did not accept that window. Instead, the neighbor himself mailed me a letter separate from his attorney. It was a rant accusing me of trying to steal his home, calling me a land squatter and claiming I was attempting extortion by refusing to sell at his price. He wrote, "If you didn't want someone to build there, you should have built there yourself." My wife read it and said, well, by that logic, if you don't hold your phone, he can just take it. Exactly. He also started working the neighborhood. He told people I was some kind of absentee investor trying to kick out a family. He did not mention the fake survey, he didn't mention the fence line, he did not mention that when I first showed up, he told me that I was not supposed to be there. A couple of neighbors approached me in that awkward, "Hey, so I heard" way, and I kept it simple. I showed them the license survey summary and said, "I'm not trying to ruin anyone's life here. I just want my land back." Most normal adults understand that you cannot build on land you don't own is not a controversial opinion. But the neighbor was not normal about it. He doubled down, he put up more signage, he started parking vehicles right near the fence like he was guarding a border or something. He posted online vague stuff about fighting greedy landowners. He even sent me an email that included the line, "I've been here long enough that I have rights now." This is one of those internet myths that people love. No, you don't just live somewhere for a little while and it becomes yours. There are legal concepts around long-term possession in some places, but they have strict rules, long-time requirements, and usually don't pair well with "I forged a survey stamp." My attorney read that email and said, "Great, keep that." And then we did exactly what the neighbor kept demanding. We solved it legally. We filed the property case that asks the court to confirm the deed is yours and order the other person off the land. Along with that, we filed for an order to make him stop changing anything while it was pending because he had already been bragging about adding a garage extension and maybe a pool. The idea of him building more on my land made me feel like my blood pressure had learned new skills. The court granted a temporary order. In plain language, stop building and stop altering things until this is resolved, and this is when the neighbor discovered that going legal is not a single dramatic day. It is months of deadlines, paperwork, and consequences for ignoring orders, and he hated it. He tried to keep working anyway, workers showed up with materials, someone called it in, he tried to claim it was minor maintenance, but it clearly wasn't, and he got warned. Then he got more careful, not because he respected the order, but because he didn't want to be the guy who gets in extra trouble while already drowning. He also filed a counterclaim saying I was harassing him and causing emotional distress. Which was impressive. The audacity to say, "I'm harassing you by owning land you built on." At this point, my malicious compliance was not about doing something sneaky or dramatic, it was about doing the most disciplined, boring thing possible. I stopped engaging emotionally and treated him just like a paperwork problem. I kept records, every email, every letter, every time he talked to neighbors, every attempt to violate the order. I did not exaggerate. I just documented and he couldn't stop talking. He loved writing threats, he loved, just so you know, emails, and he loved telling me that I was loose. He loved saying, "My lawyer says," as if this lawyer was a wizard or something. It was like he couldn't imagine a world where his confidence was not evidence. We had mediation because that's often required or at least encouraged in situations like this, and it's basically a structured attempt to settle without dragging everything to a full hearing. The neighbor showed up like he was ready for a speech, big energy. He talked about my home and my kids and my sweat equity. He kept repeating that he was not using it, and at one point he actually said, "Who buys land and just leaves it? That should be illegal." The mediator didn't laugh, but you could tell he was working hard to keep a straight face. The neighbor offered to buy the land under the house for a number so low it would not have even covered my legal fees at that point, never mind the actual land value, and when that didn't work he pivoted and suggested I should buy the house from him because it's basically yours anyway. My attorney asked him calmly, "So you want him to pay you for a house that you built on his land?" The neighbor said, "That's fair." The mediator asked, "Why would that be fair?" The neighbor's honest answer was basically, because otherwise I would lose everything. That's not fairness, that is panic. And by the way, guys, you gotta give props to this entitled neighbor, at least he's honest. But yeah, we didn't settle. After mediation, the case moved into the part where both sides have to exchange info and answer questions. This is where the neighbor's legal confidence started turning into legal exhaustion, because once you're in it, you don't get to just shout sue and call it a day. You have deadlines. You got obligations, you have to produce documents, you have to explain what you submitted and why, and you have to answer questions in a way that doesn't collapse under your own contradictions. And let me tell you, his contradictions were plentiful. He tried to act like the fence line was just where it always was, which was funny because there were older photos that showed a different boundary look before his build. He tried to act like he trusted a professional but then couldn't identify an actual licensed professional behind his survey. He tried to paint himself as a helpless family man, but his own emails to me had lines like, "You were gone so long, it's basically mine," and "You should have built if you cared." At one point he tried to be clever and say he didn't know, someone owned it because nobody was using it. But then he would also say things like, "It was vacant forever," which is not the same as, "I believe I owned it." That is, I assumed nobody would show up. He also started feeling the financial squeeze. You cannot cleanly refinance a house when there's a property dispute hanging over it. You cannot sell it to a normal buyer because no normal buyer wants to purchase a house that might have to be moved or torn down. You cannot keep improving it because you're under an order not to. Even his dream home became a weird frozen asset that still cost money. His dream turned into a hostage situation, except he was the one holding himself hostage. Eventually, we reached the hearing where the main question got addressed. Whose land is it and what happens next? We presented my deed, tax records and the legitimate license survey. He presented his permits and his story, and the judge asked him why he didn't confirm the boundary with a license survey before building. He tried to claim that he did, which immediately ran into the problem of, then why is your survey not legit? The judge asked why his fence line did not match what the license survey found, and he said, "The old markers must have been wrong." The judge asked, "Based on what?" The neighbor, and I'm still amazed by this, basically said, "It didn't make sense." That's not how property works. You don't get to reshape boundaries because you don't like them. Then the judge asked him directly whether he knew the land belonged to someone else when construction began, and this is where he tried to dodge with clever wording and ended up hurting himself. He said something like, "I didn't know someone would come back," which is not the same as "I believed I owned it," and that sentence landed like a brick. When the decision came out in plain language, it said the land was mine, he had no legal claim to it, and his counterclaims didn't hold up. As for the house, the judge didn't do him any special favors. The decision made it clear the situation had to be fixed on a real timeline, not through endless stalling. Because the judge did not buy his good faith story, the outcome was not a gentle compromise. The order required him to get off my land and deal with the structure issue properly. And yes, there were financial consequences too, damages for trespass, and a chunk of costs that helped soften how much this all drained me. The neighbor reacted exactly how you would expect, like a guy who spent years convincing himself the word legal meant I win. He tried to delay, he tried to argue removal was impossible, and he tried to threaten appeals. Every move cost him more money and bought him less time, and he also tried to play the public pity card again. He posted about losing his family home. He framed it like I was taking it from him, not like he built it on land that wasn't his. Then came the unglamorous part, undoing what he did. There were contractors, there were dumpsters, there were arguments between him and the people he hired. There were days when I drove by and saw the place half dismantled and felt that weird emotional mix of this is what you earned and this is still an insane situation. The house came down piece by piece. Siding removed, framing dismantled, materials hauled out, landscaping ripped up, the fence line taken down. That cute rustic sign disappeared early, which made me happier than it probably should have. At one point I saw the neighbor standing there watching the work, and he looked exhausted. He looked angry, he looked like someone who spent years treating consequences like a rumor and then found out they are real. For a second, I felt bad. But then I remembered the first day I showed up on my land and he told me that I was not supposed to be there and threatened to sue me for being present, and the feeling just passed. When the land was finally cleared, I had it graded and stabilized because heavy construction churned up soil and left ruts. I remarked the boundaries properly and I arranged for periodic checks so nobody could pretend nobody's watching again. I did not immediately build, not because I was scared, but because I refused to let his stupidity dictate my timeline. I wanted my next step to be calm and deliberate, not an emotional reaction. And the next one is titled, Really Seals in the Flavor. So this story is from many years ago, from when I was 19 to 20. I used to work for a resort, the same resort 3 separate times in many different job roles, so prepare for other stories. Anyway, this was my second time working there. When I did dishwashing, I kind of got the job accidentally, which is another story entirely. But anyways, they held a Hawaiian luau event, which involved renting a custom-built whole pig spit roast that fit 2 pigs. As a seasoned adult who has now enjoyed a lifetime of good barbecue, this thing was beautiful. As someone who thought they were an adult, this thing was a large inconvenience and a waste of money. I didn't get to participate in any of the food, but I did get to see the dishes. Me and my coworker went out in the loading dock to take a break as one of the chefs rolled up with a golf cart towing the big old pig cooker. There are 2 types of chefs at this resort, the cool ones and the type who was currently driving the golf cart. He lights up a cigarette and looks at the 2 of us, points at me and says, "Clean it." I walk up and take my first look inside. It looks like it's been through absolute hell. This is more than a shift worth of cleaning. I don't even know where to start. Well, they'll be here in 3 hours to pick it up. So you better start now, and when they get here, it better shine like new. How do you even clean something like this? I don't care, just make it shine. I know I'm being set up for failure, but I knuckle down. If I work my butt off but fail in the process, I'll be in less trouble than if I just don't try at all. I brought out the big guns, I went to the supply closet and got a brand new unused floor scrub brush, all the heavy chemicals and the garden hose. I sprayed the whole thing down in 4 cans of the heaviest degreaser we have, let it sit, and then literally stand inside and scrubbed. After an hour of scrubbing, I rinsed to see the progress. Not much. I go to maintenance and grab a paint scraper and some scotch pads out of their supply, another round of heavy chemicals, and I start scraping, really making progress now. I work into a system, chemicals, scrape, scrub, rinse, chemicals, scrub, and rinse. So I am there on my knees in this thing, chipping away at this crap, and I heard the dock door open. It's one of the office guys, the chef, and someone else. "Right out here, you better have it clean for you." It's at this point I look up. The chef sees me, obviously not done, and has an evil grin. The office guy looks indifferent, and the stranger? Enraged horror. He comes running up and starts a tirade. I blank on what he says as my mind goes into survival mode. Usually, people I see this angry are one really small thing away from physical violence. I don't remember the exact argument, but I do remember the guy being mad about how I was cleaning it with "you scrubbed off the flavor," and how it was seasoned, which meant nothing to me at that point in my life. The chef chimed in with, "Why would you do this? Don't you have any common sense?" And my mind comes back into focus and I say, "You said you didn't care how I cleaned it, but to make it shine like new." There was a moment of silence, and then he starts back at me, telling me that I was done here and HR would have my butt for this, like losing this job would ruin my life or something. The other dishwasher, like a knight with a moist dish towel over one shoulder, appears in the doorway. "Dude, you literally told him to make it shine like new. I was standing right here." They made me stop where I was and rinse it off. We lost our deposit, but I never got in trouble. Chef got his butt reamed. Things never got better there, but I felt vindicated. I'm still good friends with that other dishwasher. And the next one is a satisfying petty revenge story, and it is titled, "Mom said my birthday was not about me, so I made sure it was not about her either." My mother is complicated. She can be selflessly helpful when times are rough, but when things should be easy or good, it's like she has to ruin them. She also shows up way too early for everything and makes it everyone else's problem. Today was supposed to be my birthday celebration, nothing big, just booked a 1 p.m. lunch with her, my brother, his partner and their kids, and as you can probably already guess, when I showed up at 12:45, she was already furious that I had the audacity to keep her waiting for nearly 2 hours. After 15 minutes straight of being yelled at, I told her she should just leave if this was how she was gonna act, that this was my birthday and I wanted to actually enjoy it, not have her ruin it. She refused and insisted that I should be the one to leave instead, because she said this was never about me, it was about her getting to spend time with her grandkids. Okay then, if my birthday is about spending time with the kids, then that's exactly how I would celebrate. So I absolutely monopolized the kids and made it so she couldn't spend any time with them. Instead, she got to sit in the corner pouting while I enjoyed some quality nibbling time. And yeah guys, thanks for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.